Hey y'all, we're back with another episode of Haute, Paire, and this one's really special, kind of near and dear to my heart because I have some people that I really love and respect here on the panel with me. My Uncle Paul is here with me, and my Aunt Pam as well. And I wanted to, instead of me introducing them like I've done with guests in the past, I wanted to give them a chance to introduce themselves. So, Uncle Paul.
My name is Jonathan Paul Hicks. I'm a retired naval officer, retired police officer, City of Houston. Now I work for the School District Police Department. So I've got about around 25 years experience in law enforcement. So I'm pretty much well-rounded.
What about you, Aunt Pam?
I'm Pamela Hicks. I did 21 years, retired sergeant, Houston Police Department. Now I'm a teacher. Been teaching for 11 years. Currently still teaching at HISD.
All right, and so I have them on this episode because I wanted to kind of get but I wanted to have them speak on the matters of policing in our community recently. It's Black History Month, and while we are celebrating and the joy that is so many wins recently, especially with Black Panther in town, I wanted to take a moment and be kind of serious and open up people's eyes a bit. But before we dive into that heavy stuff, let's talk on some recent Black History Month wins. A lot of people talk about, MLK, Malcolm X, Rosa Parks, and that's great. Definitely know your history, definitely know all that stuff, but know that Black history is being made every day. And some recent ones that I really love were Serena Williams, a Nike honoring her. She got a building named after her. Like, this is a big year for her. She had a kid, got married, is still playing tennis. Like, she just came back, and she's still playing tennis, and Nike named a building after her, and I'm sure that made her contract with them even bigger. And Sterling K. Brown at the SAG Awards. So I don't know if y'all know who Sterling K. Brown is, right? Mm-hmm. He was, do you watch This Is Us?
No.
Did you watch the O.J. Simpson miniseries on FX?
I sure did.
He was the one who played Chris Darden.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He did a
great
great job.
Right? He did a really great job. So he won an award for that. He won an award for, I think the cast won an award for O.J. Simpson. But he won an award for his role in This Is Us recently. And he's doing big things. Like, he's been in Black Panther. He's doing a lot of big things. He's an actor who, if you don't know who he is, definitely get to know him because he's going to do great things in the future.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
I'm excited.
And then speaking on Black Panther, it came out this weekend. So you guys, I'm not sure if you know this, but we tape our episodes a little earlier than we aired them. And I didn't want to wait too late to talk about Black Panther because I'm riding on a high. It dropped yesterday. And I've seen it twice already. I'm going to see it a third time today. You guys are going to see it, right?
This evening.
Yeah, y'all are going to see it this evening, so I haven't seen it yet.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
I'm excited. Can't wait.
So we're not going to give any spoilers, but I did want to touch on a few of the concerns that I've heard about the quote-unquote lack of diversity in the film. So, of course, we all know the cast is at least 90% Black. At least 90% Black. And so there was a lot of talk about, that's not fair, there's lack of diversity, but just because you're Black doesn't mean you're from the same place. Mm-hmm. So, like, you have Chadwick Boseman and Angela Bassett and Forrest Whitaker and who else is in there? I feel like I'm missing somebody. They're all African American. But then you have Lupita is Kenyan Mexican. Letitia, the one who plays his little sister, she is from Guyana. I'm pretty sure I'm mispronouncing that, and I apologize for that. Daniel and Andy Serkis are from Great Britain. Like, it's a really diverse class.
I think
cast.
To entertain that thought, for someone to make that statement,
right,
and entertain that thought is offensive to me.
Very.
Because if you know cinema history, in the past and even today, there are currently movies made with all white casts, as well as TV commercials. So for you to say that, it's like someone saying, this is reverse discrimination. No, it's not. This is recognition of us that, hey,
Exactly.
we've been contributing, we exist. So why not? And y'all been doing it for, God, who knows how long, since y'all invented the camera was invented. So why shouldn't we have this?
Right.
What's wrong with seeing this?
Right.
You even have Hispanic movies with all Hispanics and Asian movies with all Asians. Why can't we have a movie that's all us?
I agree.
And I'm not really familiar with Game of Thrones. Or is it? It's
Love
one
Game
of
of Thrones.
those.
Yeah, Game of Thrones.
Movies. And they said for the first 3 movies, were there any African Americans?
Oh, Lord of the Rings. Is that what you're talking about?
Is that?
Yeah, Lord of the Rings. Yeah,
Were
there
there-
weren't any.
Were there anybody complaining or?
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
There you go.
And I mean, and if they were minor roles. And I think that's what made this film so big and what made our community latch onto it so quickly. Representation matters. And I've said that before. I'll say it again a million times. Representation matters. We want to see ourselves represented on screen and not just in negative roles.
Absolutely.
Black Panther is by far not the first black superhero, but this is the first film that had a diverse cast that showed black people in a positive light. Like you had women in STEM, and I'm going to butcher the female warriors. The Dora Milaje. They're the warriors of. They're the army of Wakanda. So to see ourselves in that light,
Yeah.
this is what was needed. It should have been happened. Shout out to Ryan Coogler for directing this. It should have been happened, and I'm excited to see it. So I know y'all haven't seen it yet, so I don't want to give
No.
away too many
Well,
spoilers.
Well, one thing I want to add to this is
Go
that
ahead.
I haven't seen it. I'm going to see it this evening. But from what I've seen, the previews and everything in the commentation that's behind it, commentary that's behind it, it's going to be an eye-opener. Just like until the Harlem Globetrotters, I think it was Minnesota Lakers back then, they beat them the first time by 2 points, and they came back and they really whipped their butt. A second time, it was so prevalent because the Minnesota Lakers won the NBA championship, and there were no blacks in the NBA at that time. And after they beat them in the late 40s, I think in 1950, when the Harlem beat them 2 years in a row, and they said, segregation in the NBA changed. And the first black to play in the NBA came from the Harlem Globetrotters.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, and then it just went on after that and that. So I think this movie's going to be the same thing. It's going to open up and tell Hollywood, hey, we are of different color, true, but we're just as talented as Tom Cruise or any other person who, Brad Pitt. We're just as, we're just as capable.
Right, and we have
So
the box
you
office
should
power too.
invest in us, not just watch us. Invest in us because we're gonna make you some money too.
Right. I agree. So
I think they know that.
you think they know
Already,
that?
yes.
And they're just not doing it just not to do it.
Right. It's
Okay.
just unwilling. I really do believe because there's too many hidden figures. What's that? The movie Get Out. Time and time again, Tyler Perry. He brought, what was that? The cinema. It brought them out.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. Tyler Perry Studios. Yeah, he had to start his own studios to fund
The
his
one
movies.
that initially gave him this start.
Oh, Medea.
No,
Which one?
the cinema. What was the one that he did all his movies through? And that was the last one.
Lionsgate?
Oh, Lionsgate. You're right.
Lionsgate.
Yeah.
That was really the last, I think, the movie cinema that he spoke to or
Gotcha.
talked to, because he told them, I'm not cutting any deals. Either you do it my way.
Right.
And they said, okay, hold up. We understand. But I think it's been demonstrated, Viola Davis, that we can.
We can. Exactly.
And
Because Tim Reed,
But they
owns
make
a
the
black
decision.
production company in Georgia. He's from a show like, what's the show? Barney Miller. No, Tim Reed was on
Sister, right?
his sisters, but before that, he was on what's the show he played on before then?
it's
WKRP
radio.
in Cincinnati.
Okay, gotcha.
So he didn't reach the notoriety that Tyler Perry's reached, but he did the same thing. And this
Right.
is all timing, but it's like he opened up a door
Right,
for Tyler
totally.
Perry to walk through.
Totally.
And that's what we have to do.
Right.
You know.
We have to continue to do that. We
can
have
do
to
that.
let people know that the black dollar is powerful, and you can either get invested in us or get lost in our trails. Like,
Yeah.
so, one of the things I want to talk about without giving too much away, it's been said, and I completely agree with it, Michael B. Jordan is the villain in Black Panther. He plays Eric Killmonger. It's been said that he is the most relatable villain in Marvel universe, in the Marvel universe. And after seeing, like, I heard it before and I was like, okay, that's fine. But after seeing the movie, I get it. It's not just because he's attractive, because he's absolutely gorgeous. But, but his reasoning behind wanting to take the throne and wanting to get it from T'Challa is because he wanted to help Black people across the world. He wanted to make sure that they were armed with not only the information and technology that they needed to prosper, but also the weapons needed to fight back against their oppressors. And I thought that was not only, I had to sit on that for a minute. I was like, wow, I understand where you're coming from. You're still a bad person, but I understand where you're coming from. And I wanted to talk about that a bit because I feel like it ties with what we were going to talk about today, which is police in the community.
Can I
definitely
speak on that?
Yeah, totally.
But I'm gonna change. You had that moment with that movie because we haven't seen the movie, but you have. But I had that. It was a movie called The Soldier Story. That same moment, and it was this villain. He was called the Sarge. If you ever seen the and he basically was back in World War II.
Okay,
was it World War II, Jonathan?
Yeah.
And he didn't really kill CJ, but he was really trying to weed out the Uncle Toms.
Okay.
Type black men, and what he did was harass CJ, and he ended up hanging himself, had him arrested, put in there. But his statement was that the first in World War One, they had these type of he called them Negroes that would smile in the white people's face, and then they can get them to do stupid stuff, or behave in a certain way, or tie a bunny on their head and put in blackface, but really just make themselves appear buffoonish.
Okay.
So he said we had to get rid of those type of people because they're bad for the race.
Right.
So you can't, in a way I understood, but I know it's cruel, but I understood what he meant. And he said this war will be different for the Negro. So it's
check
one
this movie out.
Oh yeah, it's a good movie.
So it was of course in the end he paid, because he suffered, because when you take part in a man's death, and we'll relate that back to police, you live with it for the rest of your life.
Right.
But the point thing is that when you're trying to lift up all the African Americans, you have to understand one factual thing. Not all of us have the same level of consciousness and awareness. And so
That's true.
So you cannot go in there with your strategy, I'm gonna lift everybody up at the same time. No, you have to first use the ones who can comprehend what you're saying.
Right.
Then you get the ones who can relate to what you're saying because they've been through similar experience. Then you got to go back and get the ones who just have a low education for various factors in existence. But you cannot go in there and try to sweep the whole. Just look at it sweeping up, cleaning the house. You cannot take a broom with the standard broom they want to use, and make one sweep in the room and all of the floor is clean. You have to go a section at a time, a side at a time, a path at a time.
Right.
And eventually the whole floor has been swept. So every time you get someone who's going to go in and try to lift everybody up at one time, it's not going to work.
Right.
For those factors.
I agree. Definitely agree.
I agree. I love that y'all touched on this now. So I wanted to get into police in the community, or that part of the show, because it's a mouthful, and I know you guys are a fountain of knowledge for this. So I did a little bit of research, and I was shocked by the numbers a bit. And this will be more so, I just want to let you guys know who are watching. I'm going to let them take the lead on this segment. Yeah, I mean, I feel like they speak very well and eloquently. They know what they're talking about. They have experience in this. And while I studied criminal justice, they lived in it for decades. So I'm going to let them take the lead on it. I wanted to give you guys a few facts that I found when I was researching. First, get their opinion on that, and then I'm going to let them take the lead. So by November 2017, the number of black and Hispanic civilians killed at the hands of police officers was 350 compared to the 392 white civilians. I know the media has focused a lot on the number of minorities killed at the hands of police or killed in that type of situation, but why has the focus been so heavily on minorities versus on civilians killed in that kind of situation in general? Why do you think that? Why do you guys think that?
You want to go first, or
happened?
you want me to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
I think the focus have been so much on minorities, particular black males, is because of how they were killed. You know, policing is a hard job, and being a police officer myself, but it's how they were killed. When you got Philando Castro, I mean, he's shot in the car with his girlfriend and also the baby. Then you got, Eric Gardner? I mean, he was accused of selling cigarettes. Then you have Alton Sterling. He was selling CDs. So you got the other guy, I think Kushner, and he was his car was broken down, and he was walking with his hands up. So and he was shot and killed, and he was really responding to what the police said. Although Sandra Bland wasn't killed on patrol, but she later died in the jail. But right. This abuse of authority by this one particular officer led to her death.
Right. You have to understand something. You mentioned that the number of white officers killed, the number of blacks and Hispanics killed. That's really an intentional misinterpretation or misdirection, because the white people that were killed by police officers were mentally ill or drugged out.
Gotcha.
Significantly on drugs.
Gotcha. Okay.
And those are the ones who actually presented a threat to the officer's existence.
Gotcha.
The black people who were killed were unarmed. And that's the basic formation of the Black Lives Matter movement. You have white male, white female police officers. You have Hispanic male, Hispanic female police officers. You have Asian male, Asian female police officers. You have Middle Eastern males and Middle Eastern female officers. Out of all of these different aspects and entity of law enforcement officers, you only have one segment, and only 1% of that one segment that's out here shooting unarmed black men and not being held accountable for it. That is, and the question the Black Lives Matter is based on is that if y'all claim you're in fear of your life, why are the other aspects of law enforcement officers in field too? They all go through the same training, same agencies.
Right.
So why is this just 1%? I asked a white officer one time, after working with him for about a year, and almost a year, and I asked him, I turned around to my chair, looked at him and said, when you see me, are you scared of me? He said, no. I said, then I broke that analogy down to him, and I really admire and respect him, the response he gave me. He earned my respect. He dropped his head, he raised it back up. He said, Jonathan, I'm from Humble. He said, I'm not like that, but a lot of us were raised that way, and that's why you have this going on. And I looked at him, and I said, I appreciate your honesty. And that's basically what it falls down. We have people who are echoing what the grandfather taught the father and the father taught them. And so, but the thing about it, I don't like the fact that when you come out with statistics like that, it's like you blanketing all white officers, and that's not fair. That's not, and it's incorrect. You have that 1% who cannot practice individual thought, who are still projecting the mindset that they grew up in, and they grew up in a smaller segment of society. And they never ventured out this segment of society until they got a job in law enforcement.
Right.
If they hadn't got a job in law enforcement, they'd still be back in the same little small rural community where everybody thinks the same. But now they all, okay, I got to save face of my dad and my grandfather, so I got to do this. So we have to address that 1% of the white male police officers and hold them accountable. Unfortunately, we're getting justice through payments in civil suits,
Right.
which is hitting these, because the city, these municipalities like, okay, if we don't, we got to pay them because these guys are wrong.
Okay.
You know, but I'm gonna let you go ahead and insert some things.
I think it's a culture also
Okay.
in the police department, and that the chief or assistant chiefs have to be aware. They are aware of it, and it's, you know, when I was in the police department in the 80s and the 90s, and even in the 2000s, it was the good old boy system. I always hear that, the good old boy system. And you're going to talk, you know, we talk about that later, but and what we used to do back then that we can't do now, and how we used to shoot them, you know. It's the good old boy system. So that was a culture that, you know, supported those, that was okay. So.
One thing is that we're sitting here and we're relying on this 1% entity to change their way of thinking. But 50% of the responsibility falls back on us. We can get online and follow the Kardashians, but we can't go online and put up the Texas Criminal Code of Procedures and Penal Code to learn what our civil rights are.
Whew. That's a message.
How many of you don't know that the Texas legislature just changed the things that you can be outside, filming a police officer while they're handling the scene. He cannot walk with you and tell you to give him your cell phone.
I didn't know they changed that in Texas.
Again, you
I
can
didn't know.
follow the Kardashians, but you can't read
Well-
and learn what the laws and the procedures are in your state. Knowledge is power.
That's true.
Well, I think the knowledge needs to be put out there.
That's
I
what
mean,
they
the main
start
thing
doing.
about it is that when you're dealing with law enforcement, I do believe like 80% of the people, the officers out there doing their jobs. He said 1%. I believe they're good people. You know, they have a job to do, and they want to go home to their families.
Right.
Well, let me. When I say the 1%, I'm talking about the ones who
1%
are out
who are
there
doing wrong.
doing the wrong.
Right.
The
Absolutely.
other 99%
Are doing their
are
job.
professional.
Well, I don't know if
And
see
the
your
humanitarian.
numbers are a little higher than mine. I don't
Abraham
know.
said 25% of y'all messing up.
And
80% y'all all right.
and the reason why, because, you know, and we did some little statistics. They were saying that 20% of the officers are involved in multiple shootings,
Gotcha.
and 80% of us never fire our weapons. So, and the ones that do fire multiple times. And when I say fire multiple times, I'm saying involved in multiple shootings
Gotcha.
of people.
Gotcha.
So. So that's what I'm saying, the 20%. But 80% of the officers are like, I never fired my weapon.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Never, like in their whole career.
No, well, you know,
Well,
you have to
yeah,
qualify.
You have to qualify, but I mean, in the situation,
At-
like
at
a
a
Coming
person-
in a
conference,
scene
yeah,
with
in
a
a,
citizen.
right.
And, you know, I've had.
And 80% of officers never do.
That's right.
Wow.
I've had situations where I've encountered people who are doing things, and they actually had weapons in their hands, in their pocket, on them. But because you have hit them with a mandatory I was able to talk to them. I mean, actually talk to them
Gotcha.
and persuade them just rethink things. Rethink what you're doing. You don't want to do this. At the very least, we both won't be going home tonight. Me and definitely you, because I'm
Right.
skilled at what I'm doing. But you have to, law enforcement, you have to go into it with humanitarian touch. You have to go in with consciousness. You can't go with naiveness. You know, threats do exist. People are not in their right mind. People have evil intents. But the same token, you can't just blanket everybody the same.
Right.
I look at everybody, okay, this is an ethnic group, a race of people, and they're all the same. You can't do that.
Unfortunately, that's how it's done, though.
Right.
No.
Right.
You know what? I'm going to kind of go back on to something else. The reason why in that small segment of small police officers, they blanket. They see, you know, this group of people because they already have that mindset.
Right. Right.
I used to do shoplifters when I was on patrol a lot, and because they're easy to do. Because normally the report, the surveillance and everything was done by the loss.
That's less paperwork for you.
Yeah. So, and it was easy. You know, you're one man unit, and you
Right.
take the report cards, and you know it's report card calls, and it's easier that way. But remember when I used to go in there and see the cameras, they would only look for one race of a person, and then you saw them following the black female or the black all through, and it was intentional.
Gotcha.
And if you only look for one race, that's all you're gonna find.
That's all you're gonna find. That's right.
So, and normally who would find the white, older white women or the young white females is the clerk. But they only looked for one. And I saw it myself. And you end up transporting. I would talk to them and tell them, hey, they're only, because I'm there.
Right.
But, you educate. But at this point in time, if you only look for one race.
That's all you're going to find.
I actually worked a clothing store extra job, security, and I was told the day I was hired, the first day working there, that we want you to watch the young black females that's coming in because they'll do a lot of shoplifting. So when the white females came in there and I saw them shoplifting, I said, I entertained the manager. I didn't say a word.
What?
I let them steal blind because the instructions she gave me. The store went out of business.
Wow.
But I'm gonna give you what you want.
Man.
Give you what you want.
But
So
that's the mindset.
So, you talked about the store manager telling you to do that in training. I want to talk a bit about y'all's police training. What's taught to y'all, or what was taught to you when you were going through the academy? Like, was it shoot to kill, shoot to injure? What?
No, we're taught officer safety.
Okay.
And crime and scene management.
Okay.
We're one of the best academies we went through was here.
Okay.
First training wise.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. Some officers have more days where there's nothing going on, and the more they come, they get relaxed. And we've seen officers lose their life because they didn't follow the basics. They didn't remember the basic steps.
Okay.
When you're handling someone. But training wise, no. Pretty much nowadays, everyone has access to the same quality of magnitude of training. If your municipality doesn't have their own individual academy, you can now go online.
Really?
And do law enforcement training. You can videos and presentations, same lectures you get in the academy. Only thing is you can't do firearms qualifications. Right. That's about the only thing. But everything else you can get online.
Wow.
So everyone theoretically and pretty much practically has access to all the same levels of training.
Okay.
When I was in 1983 when I went through training, I thought it was very difficult. I'm like a fish out of water. At least 3 months of it was learning the search and procedure laws, the federal laws, the state law. It was all about learning. It was very academic, and that's surprising to a lot of people. Then you actually, after the other 3 months, then you get into the shooting, the crime scenes, right. the physical. You're always running throughout the whole thing. You're running about 2 miles a day, and the push-ups and all that setups and all that's required. But I thought it was more than a full-time job. And they told us that your going out days are over while you're in the academy.
Gotcha.
And don't be caught in any club.
Gotcha.
I mean, you see, when I came on, I was a military officer before I came on, so I went through the type of training. So I didn't come in letting myself think that this is going to be intense or out of control. I didn't study until the morning before a test. And she's always fussed me about that.
I would fuss at you too.
But I'm like, I know what I can't do, so I at least 85% know what I can do. 85 is a passing grade in my book, so I was good.
You would say something like that.
And you were a little bit older, and he was a military officer. So in that military, and the policing is kind of semi-military. So he knew all that, and he was real sharp.
So 85 is a passing grade.
That's true. So you mentioned that you did physical as well as educational training. Did y'all also do? Did y'all touch on policing the community versus community policing?
Yes.
That it was. Okay. So how was that approached in training, and is that something that you see people continue once they finish the academy? Or is that something that you get relaxed and you let things go, or you?
It depends on the officer. It's always an individual thing. Some people let it go, because they come in with a specific agenda to handle certain people a certain way. So I'm really going to just speak from my point is that I go into the community listening,
Okay.
then speaking, then I physically act on something.
Right.
Because my first goal is if a lot of people don't know, never been taught. So you go and you talk. I tell the kids when I come across them, I'm talking to you now, I'm talking to you again. The third time, I'm going to put hands on you.
So y'all growing up with with these two, what he's saying is exactly what he means. You got once, twice, third time, you're gonna be punished. And I will say, and all my cousins can attest to this. Growing up, I don't think we ever got the chance to. It was never forced on us to fear the police, because if you were doing the right thing, you didn't have anything to fear. And that's something that Uncle Paul taught us from very young. And Pam harped on that from a very young age. But he was like, look, you got once, twice, that's it. That, like, the third strike, we're like, well, I mean, he told you. But I can totally see him doing that in his career, because he was the same way with us. What about you, Aunt Pam?
I forgot the question. What was the question? Oh, community policing.
Yeah.
You know what? When I came on the police department, Chief Brown, he was big, and he was probably the best chief we ever had.
Okay.
He was big into community policing, and also the broken window theory.
Okay, yes, I learned about that in school. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And he created all the storefronts, and making us look more professional with the ties and the policy and procedures. So I'm all for working, and even they had young youth group. I forgot Paire group. So I'm all for community policing, and actually in creating a relationship with the community that you serve. And I don't see that as much. I think it it hung on a little bit after Brown, and we still have little segments of it, but it's not in full bloom. And I think that's where the breakdown occurs.
I agree. There was this Officer Norman, and for the life of me, I cannot remember where he is, but he's a white officer, and he polices in a black neighborhood, in an impoverished black neighborhood, but he with the consent, of course, of the neighborhood that he polices in, he'll record some of his interactions. So he'll go and hang out with the kids. He'll go and do all that. And it was highlighted recently. People were like, this should be brought back. This should be brought back. And
Absolutely.
I agree. I feel like that's something that's needed now.
Absolutely, more than ever.
Exactly. So go ahead.
Can I say something about Jonathan? Jonathan he retired from HPD. Now he's A-Leaf ISD, and they started a community service.
Nice.
And the reason I speak of that, and so I call it Kitty Patrol. And so basically he patrols, walk around and kind of walk through the schools and be that visual.
Elementary schools.
Elementary schools and intermediate, but mainly elementaries. And he's got a picture of him standing with the first graders. And they're all standing, and they come and hug him. So it's just a community service type situation.
Right.
And the reason why I brought that up is because now you got these children coming. I want to be a police officer when I grow up. Hey, and he's officer friendly.
Right.
Now we got HISD, which is a larger school district that is so needed. Just you don't have to. Particular elementary schools, and particularly the elementary school that I work in, that type of presence, because initially, you have, certain type of parents that are strong arm and almost can just, devour the elementary school with that negative thought and even how they tell the children what to do. But that police presence, is not so much to be law enforcement, but it's community service.
Right.
And they become also friendly, and because that presence really brings about awareness to the parents. They kind of realize how far they can not use profane language to the principal and
which they shouldn't be doing
try
anyway.
to browbeat the teachers.
Right.
But that's still a small portion, 2%, but still that 2% can kind of that's all it takes, can ruin a great school.
In this job here, I have the opportunity to, like I said before, a lot of the kids just don't know. It's the opportunity to teach them. I talk to them about conflict teach them conflict resolution skills, give them a different way of handling things, teach different socialization skills, teaching them how he controls his anger wins the war, teach them how to control their reaction. And I don't go into them with a harsh, firm voice. Now, at times you have to take someone, you have to firmly grab them to get their attention, verbally and sometimes physically. But once they get their attention, I can teach them. So I go in with the idea of changing the way the young group, the youngsters, the elementary people view law enforcement.
Okay.
Because that's when we start young and then teach them how to grow up, how to handle situations going on in their home, situations occurring in their neighborhood, situations they're seeing and experiencing through social media, to get them to look at things differently and say, this is not the only way you can handle it. This is not the way to handle it. And I teach, you'll be surprised, I ask this question almost on a daily basis to children. Do you know how to tell the difference between doing something right and doing something wrong? And they don't know. I tell them, this is how you tell if you're doing something right or you're about to do something wrong. You ask yourself one simple question. What I'm about to do, would I like to have that done to me? If the answer is no, that automatically tells you that's the wrong thing to do. It's wrong behavior. Something just that simple. I tell them all the time that I've been over to South Korea 3 times, been to Japan once, still the same blue sky, green grass. Our lives are difficult, not based on where we are, where we live. It becomes difficult by the decisions that we make, and what we do today directly affects our tomorrow.
That's a message. That's a really good message. Okay, one more question that I had. So, and Pam, you mentioned before that only about 20% of officers actually fire their weapon in a situation like that. I wanted to ask you guys, one, have you guys ever had to discharge your weapon? And two, I lost it. That's what it was. Okay. What kind of advice would you give to civilians in that type of situation? So if they're in a situation where it's escalated to a point where the officer has had to draw their weapon, I mean, at that point, is there going back? Is there any going back?
Well,
there is.
Before you get to that point, I would say to everyone, like I said, he who controls his reaction wins the war. Don't go in there. Don't get upset. Maintain your composure. Okay. Because that is not the place that out there on the traffic stop, out there on the streets. That is not a court of law. You will have your chance to tell your side of the story when you go to court. Don't do anything. Don't react, become hostile, volatile. Maintain your calmness. Never let anyone, not even police officers, make you be a clown in someone else's circus. So if he comes out there and he's screaming and yelling and giving you instructions, remain calm. Just be calm.
Okay.
Be calm. Don't say anything, don't do anything. Let him write you a ticket. It's not an admission of guilt. It's a promise you appear in court 35 days from now to answer the citation you've been written. That's it. That's need to argue with the officer. Yes, sir. You're not. It doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean that you're scared. It means that you're applying a discipline that this officer's not right now.
Right.
As simple as that. Maintain your composure. Be cool.
I've never fired my weapon in the line of duty at anyone. I do think that you can pull back, you can retreat.
Okay.
I mean, but at this point in time, have I pulled my weapon with the fear of being harmed? Absolutely.
Gotcha.
And it was clear to them that if necessary, I would use it. But I think I'm going to kind of restate a little bit what you said. I tend to agree with you. You follow the rules. When an officer stops you, you have to, I suggest you stay quiet, do what the officer tell you to do. Now, if you feel like something's improper, he's belittling you, berating you, or being, unkind or belligerent with you, then that's the video. You got the video. Gotcha. The video is always. And not only that, go one step further. You got the video. File the complaint. Jonathan has always told me the most powerful thing is black ink on white paper. And I know a lot of us want instant gratification. We want instant results. Okay, I filed a complaint. I want something done. It doesn't necessarily work that way.
Right.
Even with HPD, I found out that if you file a complaint, if you said that I called you the N-word, and they'll said, okay, that's your word against mine. And then a year later, someone says the same, I call them. Now, the IAD is looking, Internal Affairs is saying, well, it's some kind of pattern here.
Gotcha.
But if the first person never wrote anything, and a lot of people concerned about how the voice, how they can't write well, I would still write and document it. And then the third time, really, I'm going to get suspended.
Right.
I know I can only speak for, the Houston Police Department.
Right.
I
But
can't
at that
speak to
point,
any
the
other
pattern's
agents.
been established.
It's established, and it's in your history.
Right.
So definitely, and one thing I like about the young folks, and I always say that they are taking a stand. They are video. This policing abuse have occurred. It's occurring back then, and it still occurs now. But the one thing, we have video,
Right.
which is so painful that we see it.
But I mean, we need to have it documented.
Absolutely.
I don't think it needs to. Video is a double-edged sword when it comes to police brutality with me, and I've thought this for a while. You want to see that. You don't want to see what's happening, but you
Right.
need to see that it's happening.
Correct.
You need it for evidence, but you don't want to see it continuously happening. And until our Justice Department is not an instant gratification. It wasn't built for instant gratification. It was never established that way, so that's not how it's going to work. So you're right, documenting, it matters. Like, don't be afraid to speak up. Don't be afraid to not only post that footage on social media platforms, but add it to your report, because you can add stuff
File
like that to
the
report. Yeah, you can
complaint.
add that to your complaint, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Put it in writing.
right.
But you mentioned, you used the phrase, it being a double-edged sword. The instance whereas it is a double-edged sword is when you videotaping the officer's behavior, but in the course of that video behind on the back part of that cell phone camera, your behavior is not right either. As I tell you, maintain your calm and
Right.
composure. Never let anyone make you a clown in their circus.
Gotcha.
So we have to stop doing that. Let the officer be out there be acting buffoonish, acting out of character, just acting, being crazy,
Right.
and you maintain.
Right.
He who controls this reaction wins the war.
That's a message. I think that's gonna go in the tagline for this episode. But I wanted to wrap up that segment, and I wanted to thank you guys for
No problem.
seriously coming through and dropping knowledge on that. But I also wanted to get your insight. So, like I said, this is my uncle, that's my auntie. Grew up together, and for this week's section of Bump Bump Bump, I wanted to talk about a few staple. Well, one of them's an absolute staple at like every family function. The other one, I feel like I should know it. Like, I feel like it's the Negro National Anthem. It's Lift Every Voice and Sing. But I really only know that first line. Do y'all know anything behind that?
No, I don't. I just know the title and the first opening line. But you know what? I have my own reasons for not really focusing on that because we march. In the past, we marched. It's still marching. We've sung. And you have a minister or two that may discuss it at the Sunday sermon. But it hasn't brought about change because, I'll say it again, we are all not on the same receptive level. So a person of a generation, our generation and before us, knows the lyrics to the song. Your generation doesn't.
No.
And we shouldn't expect you to.
Yeah. Don't. I feel like I should, but yeah, I don't. That's
we
not
heard
a song
about.
though.
We did a civil rights tour, and the first place we landed was Canton, Mississippi,
Okay.
and that was because I have friends in the Navy who lived there. I never knew that after Medgar Evers was killed, Martin Luther King Jr. came there and spoke. Now, I've seen the back part of the courthouse in the movie Less Time to Kill, when everybody ran out, the kid ran out the back and said they found them guilty. But you never heard of Martin Luther King went there and spoke to the people, because Kansas City is like about 45 minutes to an hour just north of Jackson.
Right, right.
So I never knew he came there.
I didn't know
but
that.
the person who grew up there, who I met in the Navy, took us around and showed us that and gave us a lecture.
Wow.
So we have to, everyone's on the same level because for various reasons.
Right.
Haven't been exposed to it, haven't knowledge. That's why I bring it back to a while ago. You can go on social media, read Instagram, and read tweets. Pull up a book. Mm-hmm. You know, you're already online. Just pull it up and start reading, so you know what your rights are.
Right.
You know what the laws are.
Right.
Well, I'm a teacher, so you know I know that.
I was about to say, I'm
and
sure
then we're
Pam
gonna
knows it.
in that Black History program on the 23rd, we'll be singing. We're gonna end the program with that.
Really? That's awesome.
And the second graders will be singing it.
Look
so,
at that.
As far as we know, the first verse.
Right.
You know, after that, it's just we need the paper.
Right.
But I absolutely love it. I love hearing it because it's very inspiring. If you listen to the words and read the words, it is definitely something that whoever wrote that put their heart and soul into it.
Gotcha. Nice. Now, on a much lighter note, cookouts, barbecues, holidays, all that good stuff. At a Mary's house, there was usually music playing. And Before I Let Go by Maze and Frankie Beverly, or Frankie Beverly and Maze, however you want to say it, was always played. I feel like this is a staple in every Black home and every Black function. It's one of my absolute favorites. It's a good song, right?
Yes.
It's one you can groove to. I feel like it transcends generations. Like, you guys have probably been listening to it longer than I've been alive. And it's one that I went to an event a few weeks ago, and as soon as it came on, there was millennials my age. We were two-stepping and doing the not Harlem Shake, Jesus, the electric slide.
When Mary had the family coming over for the holiday gathering, if you look back at it, it was family, fun, and fellowship.
Yes.
You're always going to have family drama because family drama just don't go away.
Right.
But back then, we knew when we come together, it's for family, fun, and fellowship.
Right.
Now, Monday morning, we can go back to being mad at your daughter, your son, your husband, your wife, your sister, your brother. Go back to that. But right now, it's this neutral zone.
Right.
For mama's sake.
Amen.
Simple as that.
That's right.
And our Black families, our Black communities, need to get back to that.
Yeah.
I remember when Katrina came through, we were on 12-hour work shifts. Mm-hmm. Now, one thing about that hurricane, it didn't discriminate.
Right.
You had high-end, high-level cost white neighborhoods to the low-income Black and Hispanic areas. Mm-hmm. All of them were without power at the same time.
That's right.
All people were in the front driveways cooking with barbecue pits, but you didn't have your stove. You didn't have an electric stove, anything like that. And I've never remember driving through Houston, driving through the neighborhoods, and seeing the people, neighbors who never spoke to one another, but they were forced to interact and fellowship just to get past that point.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think I was like, wow. Now, how much as I've driven down this neighborhood, driven these streets, I've never seen these two people and they be at home at the same time, never communicate.
Right.
Now everybody,
Fellowship.
People who had a generator had extension cords with multiple other extension cords attached to it, applying with a little power they can to other neighbors' homes. It was really like you had to come together,
You have to, yeah.
or you perish.
That's right.
So we need to get back to just the family fun and fellowship. And there's a time for everything, and drama can wait till Monday morning, but Saturday, Sunday,
I like
other
that.
than just Easter Sunday when we all go to church because we don't. Oh my God!
Because Mama said
we forgot the address of the church, and now we got to go up there and look and find the address again so we know where it is. You're right, like Mama said.
Right, you're not gonna miss church or on Easter. You're definitely not gonna miss church on Easter. So we always wrap up our show with an affirmation or inspirational quote. And since it is Black History Month, one of my absolute favorite quotes by Martin Luther King Jr. Was not one that gets a whole lot of shine, because I
Really?
feel like it ruffles feathers a little bit. So I'll read it, and I'm gonna try not to like mess up. He said, "I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in the stride towards freedom is not the white citizens counselor or the I'm gonna butcher that, Ku Klux Klanner, but the white moderate who is more devoted to order than justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice." That struck a chord with me a long time ago, and I feel like it rings true. You have a lot of people who are very quiet, and they'll sit by. They don't believe that they're racist, but they don't say anything when racism is present, whether it's a joke at the dinner table by an uncle, or whether it's a meme floating on the internet, or they're not standing up for inherent racism. And until people speak up, until they not only agree that racism is wrong or any kind of oppression is wrong, but actually do something about it, we're going to continue to have these problems. Like I feel like that's one of the biggest reasons why we're still having these issues hundreds of years later.
I totally agree.
Yes.
I think if we sit silent and we let evil win,
Amen.
and we have to stand. I mean, it's to call someone out if they're doing wrong, and we have to say, and this one gets a lot of play, but this is probably one of my favorites.
Which one?
By Dr. King. Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. And when we're quiet about things, like you said, with that, and just, okay, that's how he thinks, then we're not taking a stand against wrong.
Right.
And when you don't take a stand, you really allow evil to fester. And you know what happens with
And it grows,
yeah.
Yeah.
What else
I
you
would
found?
say my message deliverance to the, not just African Americans, just the people, period, is a verse in the book of Proverbs. Wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom. But in all of our getting, get understanding. Once you get understanding, you see everything in a different light. You can easily identify soldiers of chaos and angels of mercy. And there are three types of people that you're going to come into contact with life. Those there for a reason, to help you get through something. Those who are there for a season, to sustain, once you get past that point, help you get the momentum going. And those in your life for a lifetime. Those who God put in place, like Pamela here, to help you get through life.
Thank
So
Oh, look at that.
So once you can distinguish, once you can put the people you meet, and that includes family members, because
Right.
family is a 6-letter word like people.
Yeah.
FAMILYPEOPLE.
Yeah, you're right.
Given an opportunity, they're going to behave the same. But when you get to the point you can put people, which, like I say, includes family and friends, into those three categories, know why they're in your life, and to put them in perspective boxes, your life becomes easy.
Amen.
You reduce stress, because I only deal with this person
Great.
here for a short time, and you identify, okay, he's going to be with me, or he's trying to obstruct
That's
my
right.
path, my progress. So you cast them to the side. Those who help you out for a reason, and they see you gaining ground, and then develop the crab in the bucket syndrome. I can't let you get too far ahead of me.
Right.
You can cast them out. And those who are in there for a lifetime, you can build with them.
Amen.
I agree.
Amen. Well, I wanted to thank you guys once
Oh,
again
you're
for
welcome.
coming on the episode. And I want to thank you guys for tuning in. And come on back next time. We're signing off. Thank y'all. Bye.